Hi, this is Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to have some dyeing fun over dyeing a commercially dyed skein of yarn. I am in the process of designing a Minecraft creeper hat, and I want to have a very mottled green to help give this pixelated quality that exists in the video game. The yarn that I'm starting with is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted weight yarn in the color Jalapeno. So to start, I have about 6 cups of water in a bowl, and I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. I'm adding the vinegar to the pre-soak because this will make the yarn ready to absorb the dye. The dye that I'm going to be using today to get this pixelated quality is a variety of McCormick's and Wilton's food colorings in greens, yellows, browns, and blacks to help us get a mottled creeper-like yarn. But the first step for any successful hand painting, as I come back onto camera, is to pre-soak the yarn. And so if you've watched many of my videos, or if you're new, the components that you need to dye yarn with food coloring are a protein-based fiber. In this case, we've got 100% wool. You need an acid source, which is our white vinegar. And then we'll need heat, which will come from the microwave. And so pre-soaking for 20 to 30 minutes is usually sufficient. Longer won't hurt it. And when Lucky is down for a nap, you can probably hear him banging in the background. But when Lucky's down for a nap, then we'll come and hand paint this yarn. I am back and all gloved up so we can mix up some dyes. How many colors we end up using, I don't know yet, because we will see how things proceed. The skein is only about 12 grams or so versus the usual 50 or 100 that we do. So to mix, I'm starting by adding just little amounts of water to 3 different containers. And I'm going to start just mixing up some colors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could add, some people will add food coloring directly from these. I drop things into the kits, but in my personal experience, that's a little concentrated and you go through the dye really, really fast. I'm using just small amounts of water here because I have a small amount of yarn, and we will see what happens and we can modify as we move forward. I am using McCormick's black today. It might break, but the colors are breaks into more like brown and yellowy kind of colors, whereas the Wilton's black that I have breaks into teal and fuchsia. Okay. Adding Wilton's food coloring is always more of a process because you don't really ever know, unless you measure it, how much you've got. And since I'm dealing with just a small volume of water. Now when I started pre-soaking the yarn, I showed you that I was adding vinegar to the yarn in advance. An alternative to this is to add the vinegar to the dyes that you mix up. Both methods work just fine. Most of the time when I hand paint, I lay out my skein on some plastic wrap on my work surface, but since this one is small enough on its own, I can go directly onto a plate. And now I'm going to be using some little syringes. Other parents might recognize these as the free ones that you get when you buy your child medicine. And we're going to just start randomly adding these first 3 colors and go on from there. You know, some of these may not be dark enough. I want them to be in really small sections, but if some are lighter and some are darker, that is also okay. Hopefully I'm not blocking things too much. The point and the goal here is to get just some variability in the tones that we see on the screen. The exact shades are not important. You know, and some of this might not really do much at all. But you see, like, some of the areas do look more wet. Again, like, it'll be what it'll be. But I am going to continue hand painting in this method, and then kind of, you know, as needed, I will mix up more dyes. Normally when I'm hand painting, I like to try to make sure I mix more dye than I will need at the beginning of the project, because the last thing you would want is to run out. But in this case, it doesn't really matter because I am, you know, going for sort of random colorization. Okay. There's another yellow section. And, you know, I don't want the repeats of color to be regular through here. That's why sometimes, you know, I have 2 yellow sections right here. Not that you can see too clearly, but now since this yellow is almost gone, I'm going to add some water and I'm going to add some green. 1, 2, 3, 5, and I'm also going to add a drop or 2 of black. Not quite sure how what this color would be, but we're hoping that things end up looking like green as opposed, we want there to still be contrast with the black that I will use for the creeper face. But it's always hard to see what you're getting when you're dealing with wet yarns, because colors can change and end up looking quite different. Let's see, some more brown. But yeah, that's covering up green yarn is quite different from starting with from white yarn, because I'm like, oh, what areas have been covered? And it's probably, yeah, it's probably really hard for you guys to tell on the camera exactly, you know, what's going down and where I have big you know, and if I have any big sections yet left that have yet to be colored. It's kind of hard for me to tell too, though, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I am, oh, come on, dye, come on in. The nice thing is about this is that, you know, having the original green left is more than acceptable in this case. So, you know, I just want to get a variegated greenish kind of thing going on. That looks pretty good to me. Now that we have finished hand painting this mini skein, I am going to cover up the plate in plastic wrap and microwave it for a bit. I will microwave usually in intervals between 30 seconds and a minute. You don't want to scorch your yarn, but I will say that in all my years making these dyeing videos, I have never scorched or felted any of my yarns, despite my concerns. So I think that it is a little harder to do that than I caution. 1 minute and 30 seconds was all it took for this to get nice and warm. I am going to let this cool off completely until I can comfortably touch it, and then I will give it another minute in the microwave to bring the heat back up one more time and let it cool completely. So we did have a total of 2.5 minutes of heating in the microwave, 1.5 minutes for the first round, and then after letting it cool down, another minute in the second. It's still, although I can touch it comfortably, it's still a bit too warm for me to wash, but in probably 20-30 minutes or so, I will wash it with a little bit of dish soap and lukewarm water. You don't want to shock the yarn with extreme temperature changes. And then I will hang it up to dry. Here we have our finished over-dyed yarn. You can see we still have predominantly green yarn, but we've got some like deep green, almost black and brown pieces that will help make these creepers in my Attack of the Creepers hat really pop and stand out. I'll show you a bit of the other side. I'm excited that when you look at this, you still see predominantly green, but hopefully we'll get some cool pixelated qualities when I knit up the hat. Thank you for watching this dyeing vlog. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits and wish you all happy dyeing. What's that in your hand?
Creeper.
Creeper? What does the creeper say?
Baby.
Yay!